pay them.
So are you still supplying them with the annual output of wine?
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite fun. It's really nice to, after 21 years, people that have helped plant the original vineyards. They're our friends, so we still see them. It's still a place of community. That's one of the things we really wanted to have, was a place of community for us and our friends. So even the weekend before I came to Singapore, I had some of my friends that I did my PhD with come over and have dinner and stay over, because we've got,
Are they all neuroscientists?
Two of them are, yeah. Yeah, two of them are. And
so how did you migrate from neuroscientists, bearing in mind that you have the love for the outdoor life? So what brought you to viticulture and ornithology?
So this is the true story. So I used to always have Wednesday afternoon off from neuroscience. I used to it's my mental health time. So lots of people go and play golf, or they go and do whatever. I had a mate of mine who and I, we'd have Wednesday afternoon off. He was a cardiac physician, so he used to have Wednesday afternoons off too. So what we did instead was we went to this fantastic shop that sold the most exquisite wine, and we befriended the guy that owned it. And so
what's the name of this shop?
It was called Richmond Hill Cellars. It doesn't exist there anymore, but it was.
Okay.
You're
among
you know it.
Tiger country.
Yeah.
Huh?
So it was such a great wine.
Is it down by Richmond Hills?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really like my friend Adrian used to live next door nearly. It was about a 10-minute walk. So we used to go down.
So just before going to Richmond Park, you turn right.
So it's actually off Swan Street. So it's near Lennox Street. So anyway, it doesn't exist anymore, which is a shame.
The wine shop.
The wine shop doesn't exist anymore. But that used to be on the corner there, and it had the most fantastic wine selection from Burgundy and wherever, everywhere in the world. And we befriended the guy that ran it.
What's his name?
His name's Tim Feistel.
Tim Feistel.
Yeah, and he was a great guy. So Tim used to just, we used to walk in there and we'd say, hey Tim, show us something cool. And he would just give us a couple of bottles of wine, and we'd just wander off, and we'd spend the afternoon just sitting on the couch, pouring Burgundy and talking rubbish, and trying to solve the world's problems over a glass of Burgundy. It was sounds really, it sounds decadent, which it was.
What year was that?
That was probably 93, 4, 5, something like that. We did it for a few years. So, but what we started to realise was that we were drinking these wonderful wines, and in Australia at the time, there wasn't that many really, really awesome wines that we enjoyed. They were good wines, but they weren't wines that were made for small producers and in a really artisanal way. There was a lot of wines made in a very standard format. There were a few exceptions. There were Gioconda and Vasse Philippe, and there were a few exceptions, of course, Mount Mary, Yarra Yering, but they weren't that many. And then because we were 27, it's hard to remember what it's like when you're 27. You're super arrogant, you're super confident, and you think, how difficult can it be to make? And so we said, hey, let's do it. And so my wife, she's very adventurous too. She said, oh, okay, well, let's do it then. And
what's the name of your wife?
Marie.
Marie, okay.
Yeah, so Marie said, oh, yeah, well, all right then, let's do it. And so we said, all right, if we're going to do this, let's do it. So let's research it, let's study. So Marie and I actually went off and studied winemaking, so we got a degree in winemaking as well.
Oh.
So we went and studied winemaking because what we didn't want to be is we didn't want to
be...
So
you went to South Australia?
No, we went to New South Wales actually. Oh. So there's a university in New South Wales, not the University of New South Wales, called Charles Sturt University.
Is it on the New England Plateau?
No, it's further south, it's in Wagga.
Wagga,
Wagga, yeah. So this is quite funny really. So Marie and I spent the next 7 years of our life studying winemaking. While all our friends were on holiday in Tuscany, we would be in a caravan in Wagga Wagga. So,
it took you 7 years?
Well, the thing is, we had 4 kids. We had building the winery, working full-time, and doing study part-time. It takes a long time.
Wow, that's very determined, huh?
I tell you what it is. We didn't want to be another rich doctor group that end up setting up a winery. That's what we did not want to do. We wanted to actually make the wine, grow the grapes, build the buildings, do all that stuff, and we wanted to have a bit of credibility.
So who were the people at Wagga that you think had an influence on you in terms of your approach to winemaking?
Well, it's quite interesting, because a lot of the students at that time, they're still my friends now. So, a lot of those guys are now, head winemakers at Levantine Hill or head winemakers here and there. One of the head winemakers of Penfolds, the chief head winemaker for the white wine program, his name's Peter Munro. He went to university with us. So
he was Peter Gago's right-hand man.
He was on the red wine program at some point, but now he's the head white wine program. Yeah, but it's interesting that it becomes a community, and that's what we wanted to have. We wanted to have some credibility. You can't have credibility if you don't actually study and do the winemaking. Not so much that you need to know about winemaking, but you need to actually be a winemaker. You can't. You don't want to pretend.
Right.
So that's one of the things. So yeah, that's why we were determined to finish it and get a bit of paper. I don't need it, but it's nice to actually have it.
So what did you do? You did one semester per year or what?
No, we did a couple of more. In the beginning, when we had only one kid, we might have done 2 or 3, and then as we got more children, like we got to 4 kids, it was, we might have done 1 or 2 a year. So, but it wasn't that we had to.
Both of you did it.
Oh yeah. So we both did it together. Yeah. So it was kind of fun.
Tell me, how did you meet Marie?
She was doing a PhD in the same laboratory as me.
Is she Australian?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Where's she from?
Well, she's from Melbourne. Yeah, so she's born and bred from Melbourne, 7th generation.
North of the river?
Yeah, she's north of the river. So Carlton was where I met her, so yeah. So she was at Melbourne Uni.
Okay.
So
it's very good to have a wife who's as passionate as you are.
Well, the thing is, that makes the difference, because we work hard, and it's nice to work hard together, and it's on something that we really love, and it's interesting because it can be fraught working with your wife, living and working and everything
and
together.
Your kids are on the winery with you, or they've got?
Yeah, look, they're young kids, they're not that young anymore, but having 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 15-year-olds, they're not all that excited about doing hard work. It doesn't matter if it's in a winery or not. But I'm sure when they look back at their childhood, they'll look back and say, wow, that's a pretty nice place to grow up.
At least they don't write to their friends and say, Papa's got purple hands.
Yeah, no, that's a good book, actually. But it's interesting, that I think it's nice growing in growing up as a child, in a vineyard or in a farm, because it's sort of you see nature, and you understand, like we have our own animals there, so, they understand where food comes from,